Joining us now, Elaine Parker. She is with Job Creators Network, and she is the spokesperson for Job Creators Network. She's also the president CEO of Job Creators Network Foundation. And we always love having her on because we can talk a little bit about the economy and all these jobs and great things happening with the Trump's tax cuts. Elaine, great to have you with us.
Hey, John, how are you? Happy birthday. I didn't know it was your birthday.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Actually, my birthday was 2 days ago, but like Father's Day, I extended for an entire month. So it's actually my birthday month.
Birthday month.
Yes. So I have made Father's Day in our household, like the entire month of June is Father's Day month, right? I mean, what good is a day? I need like days and days to celebrate Father's Day. So that's what I've done. Elaine, I want you to talk about your op-ed on the assault on capitalism. If you would do that for us, you had one the other day. Great piece. What's the deal here?
Look, there's no doubt that there is an all-out war against free enterprise. When we look at the policies of some of the Democrats in the Democratic Party and the policies that they're getting behind, they're absolutely getting behind socialistic policies. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for instance, is behind this Green New Deal. We call it the Green Raw Deal, and it would fundamentally change our society into a socialistic economy. It would quadruple our national debt. Medicare for all. We call that Mediscare for all, because the reality is it would lower the quality of care. It would create scarcity of resources, and so on and so on. I mean, you look at the Amazon deal. AOC ran out 25,000 jobs out of New York City. They were $150,000 a year jobs, and she called that scraps. I could go on and on and on about these policies. It is a war against free enterprise, and we have got to push back on these policies, and we need to do it in some ways through education, because AOC, she is a walking indictment of our economic education system with the number of people that are getting behind these policies.
She is really unbelievable. In fact, Kara, do you have a clip on her that I emailed you? See if we can get that up before Elaine's segment's over. I just emailed it. I've got a clip on her, some of the crazy things that she's saying. It's a couple of minutes, but it's worth it if I can get that up. Because, Elaine Parker, you also did an op-ed on AOC that appeared in, I think, a couple of days ago. I saw it in townhall.com, which is part of the Salem network. And you were saying what you just said, that her policies are just an indictment of the American economic system that we have. It's crazy. I mean, some of the things that she's saying is bizarre, and I've got a clip on it coming up in a few minutes when we have that. I want to get to, though, some polling numbers, and that have to do with economic literacy that's been in the news. And in a recent Job Creator Scott Rasmussen poll, it shows that the general public has a poor understanding of economic and finance topics, which is maybe why there's a growing number of younger Americans that believe socialism is the answer. You want to elaborate on this?
Sure. So every week, the Job Creators Network Foundation, in partnership with ScottRasmussen.com, polls 1,000 Americans on different topics. We always ask about economic topics. And because of all this, these policies and the left policies that AOC is pushing and so many young people are getting behind, we decided to poll on economic literacy. And, it came back that there is a serious problem with basic economic literacy in this country. 75% of the people underestimated how long it would take to pay off $5,000 in credit card debt if you only paid the minimum. Only 27% of the people knew how large our federal debt is expected to be. And it's amazing to me, 60% of the people don't understand that a rise in minimum wage is going to reduce the number of entry-level jobs that are even available. These are scary numbers. And here's the part that's frustrating, is only 22% of the people knew that the unemployment rate for Hispanic Americans is at an all-time low. That's the result of all of the tax cuts, and the unemployment rate is low across the board for blacks, for women, for Hispanics, for Asians. It goes on and on and on, and that's what we've been talking about all year, and the message isn't getting out there. And that's frightening. I don't know, if I could just take a moment and talk about what we do. We actually have an education program at Job Creators Network Foundation. It's called Employer to Employee Education. We're founded by a man named Bernie Marcus. He's the co-founder of Home Depot. And he believes that the best way to prevent bad public policy is to create a better educated public so that they understand how government policies impact jobs. And that's what we do.
It's the service that Job Creators Network is providing is pretty amazing. I want to remind everybody the amount of misinformation and lies in the legacy media impugning the tax and cut is for the rich or something is so stupid. Just go to taxcutswork.com. That's taxcutswork.com. I want to get to back to AOC that you were talking about earlier. You did an op-ed in townhall.com just pointing out all of the dumb things that she's proposing and her lack of any knowledge, and the fact that she's become the less star of the media is laughable and frightening all at the same time. Here's a clip we have on her on some of the more interesting comments that she's made.
Mr. Sloan, why was the bank involved in the caging of children and financing the caging of children to begin with?
I don't know how to answer that question because we weren't.
There are very few organizers in Congress, and I do think that organizers operate differently, really about organizing and really thinking about that word, organizing. We should not be haunted by the specter of being automated out of work, right? We live in a society where if you don't have a job, you are left to die.
That upper middle class doesn't exist anymore.
She's a socialist. She wants 7% tax rates. Those are both accurate, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Democratic
socialist.
And then if people are going to call me a socialist for believing in those things, like, all right, call me a social. Like, I don't give a damn.
Why aren't we incorporating the cost of all the funeral expenses of those who die because they can't afford access to health care? The idea of 10% better from garbage shouldn't be what we settle for. Unemployment is low because everyone has 2 jobs.
I don't have an opinion. This is backed by data.
Capitalism has not always existed in the world, and it will not always exist in the world.
There's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right. I just introduced Green New Deal 2 weeks ago.
At 0 carbon emissions, no use of fossil fuels within 12 years.
That is the goal. It's ambitious. One way that the right does try to mischaracterize what we're doing as though it's like some kind of massive government takeover.
What this requires is massive government intervention.
It does. Yeah, I have no problem saying that. The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. Your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? So people are like, oh, it's unrealistic. Oh, it's vague. Oh, it doesn't address this little minute thing. Is it okay to still have children? You try. You do it.
Right. I'm not allowed to say that. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble when I go back to work.
So until you do it, I'm the boss.
How about that?
People are trying to introduce watered down proposals that are frankly going to kill us.
Really bringing together a cohesive strategy of putting pressure on the chamber instead of only focusing on the pressures inside the chamber.
That's a really interesting thought.
On a scale of 0 to some, how many do you give?
I think
This is, we play clips of her, Elaine Parker, every day. We do montages because it is so ridiculous. This is like the gift that doesn't keep on giving. It just keeps giving us stuff. The woman is a complete imbecile. She has no idea of anything that's going on. And so you just play what she says back, and it becomes like the AOC comedy hour. Yet the legacy media is taking her policies seriously in America.
John, I actually think she's downright dangerous. I'm at that point where I think she's dangerous. I mean, I listened to all of those clips, and I can't respond to every one of them, but it is the latest evidence, many of those, that she knows nothing about our economy, how it works, or even how our society works. I mean, she says that people who don't have a job here are left to die. What society is she living in, and how out of touch can she be?
They're left
if
to
she
die.
wants to see a society where people are dying because of failed economic policies, she should go down to Venezuela.
Right. I mean, it's just, she ought to go there for like 2 weeks and just live there, right? And then, of course, the hypocrisy of her, because she says, you know, she doesn't want airplanes flying around, but she takes an airplane from Washington to New York City where she could take an Amtrak and get there faster from downtown to downtown when you take in security and everything else. I mean, it's really, the woman is beyond the pale in hypocrisy. But look, she's being taken seriously. She gets an inordinate amount of earned media. And, you know, at first it reminded me, we used to have a congressman in Ohio. His name was Jim Trafficant, and he used to speak once in a while and say, "Beam me up, Scotty," and he was involved with the mob in Ohio and Cleveland. I mean, the guy was a complete whack job, and we would play his clips once in a while on my show just to laugh, right? Because it was just, the whole thing was ridiculous, but nobody took him seriously, right? Until finally he got put in jail. Nobody took the guy seriously. I mean, they're taking this person's economic policies seriously, and she's never even had a job. It's incredible, isn't it?
It is. It's crazy. I mean, and just for an example, some of the crazy things that went on that hearing the other day with the CEO of Wells Fargo. I mean, trying to hold banks liable if there's a spill in a pipeline because they financed it. I mean, think about that. Should we hold the government liable when the solar companies, Solyndra, go out of business and they took all of our tax dollars? I mean, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. You know, and also going back to our education system, which is where I believe all of this starts. You know, right after the Amazon deal happened and all those jobs went away, Andrew Ross Sorkin with MSNBC,
right,
not a beacon of conservatism,
right,
issued a tweet, and what he said was, there is a financial literacy epidemic in America. Quick lesson: New York City wasn't handing cash to Amazon. It was an incentive program based on job creation and producing tax revenue. There isn't a $3 billion pile of money that can now be spent on subways or education. She literally didn't understand what tax incentives were, and there were people who got behind her and believed the same thing. And all those jobs are gone because they didn't understand how capitalism works. And the governor of New York absolutely understood it, and he said this was a tragedy.
Well, she ran off 25,000 jobs with an average salary of $150,000. But that isn't even the story, because if Amazon was there, what was the estimates were that it would create another 25,000 jobs in people that were in companies that came there because of Amazon. So she cost the district, that area of New York, that area of New York City in Queens, $50,000 jobs, all the taxes that go with it and all the income that goes with it. And because people get the money, they get a job, they buy things. I mean, and she ran them off. And now you got the governor, like you said, Cuomo, falling all over himself to apologize, begging them with, paying for full page ads in the New York Times at $25,000, $50,000 a pop in order to get him to come back. I mean, you've never seen such a crazy thing in your life. And yet she's applauded for this. It's incredible.
I mean, all the ancillary jobs that would have been created just with Amazon being there, you're talking about $4 billion in wages a year, just out of Amazon. And when you add in the multiplier effect with the ancillary jobs and the economic activity, you're talking about $12 billion a year in economic activity. And what they offered was $3 billion over 25 years in tax incentives for the promise of the jobs, and they were estimating $30 billion in tax revenue back into the city. That's a net That's a net of $27 billion that the city was going to get to keep. It's amazing to me how somehow she didn't understand basic math, and how many people got behind her and didn't understand basic math.
It's unbelievable. A couple more poll numbers here, and I have to take off from the Rasmussen poll. How would you rate the U.S. economy today? Excellent and good, 51%. Poor and not fair and poor, 45%. Is the economy getting better or worse? Better, 36%. Worse, 26%. How would you rate your own personal finances? Good or excellent, 51. Fair or poor, 38. So all the numbers on the economy are up, yet there's a growing number of people that want to change the system to socialism and crash it. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, one of our biggest challenges right now is we have a labor shortage. We've got 7.3 million jobs available, and we have 6.5 million people to fill them. We have a labor shortage. We have a skills mismatch. We need a training program, and the administration is doing a lot in workforce development and creating partnerships and jobs training and apprenticeships. Those are the things that we need to keep doing and focusing on to get people back to work and continue growing this economy.
Elaine Parker, spokesperson, Job Creators Network. She's also the president CEO of Job Creators Foundation. Elaine, thanks for being with us. Thanks for sharing those numbers and just some of the crazy things coming out of the Democratic Party right now is insane. It's just insane stuff. And it's almost like we have these conversations and you want to make fun of it, but you can't. Because as you said, this is a very dangerous individual because the number of people taking her seriously is what's scary about the whole thing. We're out of time. I want to thank Elaine Parker for being with us. More information, taxcutswork.com, taxcutswork.com.